Appropriation 2011-12 Estimates Bill, adjourn debate on second reading and amendment proposed thereto.
The Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, it's my great privilege to spend a few minutes this afternoon speaking about the Budget 2011 and perhaps reflecting on how well this budget has been received by people throughout New Zealand. Not only those many commentators who have gone public with their support for this budget, but also the tens, even hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders in their homes who have been advantaged by this particular budget. Mr Speaker, one of the biggest spends in this budget was the commitment of some $5.5 billion to the rebuild of Christchurch. Mr Speaker, the devastation caused by the earthquakes has been well rehearsed in this House and comes as no surprise.
Order. Order. Disruption, but I wonder if the disruption might be being caused, sir, by you wearing a rugby tie.
Oh, no. It's a frivolous point of order. Well, I call the Honourable Jerry Brownlee, and while I'm on my feet, can I just urge members, if they want to have private conversations, would you please leave the chamber? Thank you. I call the Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, I don't want to say anything other than that rugby tie you're wearing is not half as fetching as the scarf you often adorn yourself with in this House. And while I might say, Mr Speaker, that the scarf itself is not the cause of disorder, it is most certainly the cause of distraction at various times. Mr Speaker, everyone knows that Christchurch is facing a degree of difficulty at the present time. That is significant. For many homeowners it is particularly difficult, and the government has made its commitments to ensure that we do get people back to as closer to a 3 September position as quickly as possible, albeit that proves somewhat difficult. But Mr Speaker, for the vast majority of New Zealanders, New Zealand families, the thing that matters most to them is the ability to purchase their family home and to hold that ownership. And one of the pleasing things about this budget, sir, is that it will ensure that mortgage rates for families in New Zealand remain low for a much, much longer period of time. Just a short time ago, Mr Speaker, just prior to the 2008 election, in fact, interest rates were well above 10%, and over the last 3 years, sir, we've seen those rates drop back to just over 5 up to 6%, sir, which means that for an average family on an average mortgage, the savings, sir, are around $200 per week. Quite a significant amount. Mr Speaker, that is one of the reasons why I think New Zealanders as a whole have embraced this budget as being particularly good for them. There was no lolly scramble in this budget, sir. No attempt to buy off small pockets of the community with various little pet projects and other such. And the consequence of having a fiscally strong budget is that there is the ability to deliver on those mortgage savings for New Zealand families. And I think, Mr Speaker, one of the hallmarks of the last 2.5 years of a national government has been the willingness to do what is right in the interests of the widest number of New Zealanders. We came off an election trail after 2008, sir, to find that the New Zealand economy was in serious decline. As we all know, despite what Mr Goff says, the world was in economic meltdown. There was ongoing, or there were, and there are ongoing effects from that meltdown. And Mr Speaker, to suggest, as Mr Goff did, that it was all over in 2009 is simply wrong. We do have a situation where the government has had to hold up the New Zealand economy by a significant borrowing program, but one of the key features of this budget is that from the middle of next year, that weekly borrowing will reduce by some 2/3 to a point that we will be looking at surpluses at a much earlier time than was previously forecast. And the point about that is simply that any debt that's carried by a government is equally shared by anybody who is a contributor to the economy. So, sir, the concept of debt reduction, of the government making sure that its expenditure is not excessive, while at the same time ensuring that you don't so dislocate the economy as to cause social disruption, sir, I think is something that this government can be very, very proud of. One of the consequences of this budget is the effect on incomes. And certainly, sir, the previous budget, which of course flows through into this one, sees that 2/3 of the cost of tax reduction is shared by all of those incomes of people under $48,000. Now, what does that actually mean? It means that most taxpayers now are paying about 17.5% as a tax rate. So we have, I think, an economic picture developing of a country that has high growth rates, low taxation rates, and ultimately, sir, that will lead to higher wages and higher incomes for New Zealanders. There's no reason to assume that it would be any different in this country to what it is in others who've experienced the same sort of situation. Mr. Speaker, one of the interesting things about the New Zealand economy and its growth will be the Christchurch effect. And there are those out there who sort of suggest that we may see in that part of the country some depopulation. We may see various sort of declines in economic activity. But I am full of admiration, sir, for the large numbers of people who have stayed in the greater Christchurch area, who continue to operate their businesses, who continue to keep their workplaces going, and who continue to live their family life in those circumstances. And one thing that we can all be certain of is that as the $20 billion plus that's going to be required to repair Christchurch is spent over the next 5 years, and what's the good news about that is that that $20 billion is available and will flow through. We'll see considerable increase not only in economic activity, but I suspect also population in the greater Christchurch area. Mr. Speaker, that will have a flow through to the rest of the New Zealand economy. $20 billion is about 20% of 10%, I should say, of the country's GDP. To concentrate that even over a short period of time as a one-off in a small area of the country will see significant economic growth. Mr. Speaker, one of the confusing aspects of this budget was the response to it from the opposition. And I have to, unfortunately, sir, just go through some of the contradictions that I think are coming through from our opponents in this particular circumstance. First, Mr. Speaker, the inexplicable comments from Mr. Goff, in which he is saying he is highly critical of the previous GST increases, highly critical of the previous tax reductions, and now highly critical of almost everything in this budget, including KiwiSaver changes and many other aspects, one of which is the shared ownership model. But not once has he said that he will reduce GST, other than on a certain product line that is subject to enormous amount of price fluctuation on a seasonal basis. Not once has he said that he would increase taxation, although, Mr. Speaker, everybody on that 17.5 cents tax rate desires a higher income in time and would not want to be unduly penalised for their success by picking up a higher tax rate imposed by any future Labor government. And not once, sir, has he indicated what the attitude would be from the Labor government to KiwiSaver changes. All of those we have heard, sir, are either contradicting positions or that Mr. Goff wants to keep his options open. Also, sir, we know that in many cases on all of those issues there's been a counter-view from his finance spokesman, David Cunliffe. And we know, sir, that is just part of the ongoing difficulty that the opposition have in this House. All in all, sir, I think this has been a budget that has delivered for New Zealanders, has set forward a path for lower government debt, has put us back into a position where the government will be running surpluses much sooner than was expected, and importantly, sir, makes a commitment in health, in education, and in other social service areas that New Zealanders deeply appreciate and expect. Mr. Speaker, this has been a very good budget well received by New Zealanders, and I'm delighted to support it.
I call the honourable